And we are live.
And we're live with Devisode 14, which is our last Devisode of the year. It's bittersweet, Jose.
Yeah.
It's
Bittersweet. Yeah, it's been a very nice ride this 2020. Pun intended.
And we're here with our product marketing manager, Jonathan Americo, who's going to be here answering all of our questions on how traffic is made. And our first guest on the stream, actually, I realize, at the end of the year.
Nice. Thanks for inviting. So I'm Jonathan Americo, product marketing manager for TomTom, based here in Amsterdam. And I work with my colleagues Olivia and Jay Rojas. And for the business enterprise, and we do product marketing basically for all the products related to our verticals. So fleet and logistic, mobility on demand, and I personally I have a personal focus on everything traffic. So all the products that relate somehow with traffic, I own them from a product marketing point of view. In a nutshell, that's it.
So what do you have for us for today?
Good. Are we? Yes, nice. Are we kind of have the slides on the screen, right? So today we're going to talk about how traffic is made. So everybody knows exactly what it is. We've seen the service many times. We have maps on our phone, maps everywhere. So basically, when you think of these traffic products or traffic services, you remember those colors on top of the map. The green, the yellow, and the red that you take a look and you know if the traffic's flowing or if the streets are congested or completely stopped. So we got used to that traffic service, but sometimes we don't know exactly what has behind all of that, right? Where do we get the data from? Where is this input? How do we know all the streets and so on? And today, this is what we're going to talk about. How do we actually create the service from where the data comes from until we deliver this to the user?
Yeah, and so I think the common thing that at least I heard of when I joined TomTom was, probe data. And to me, that sounded really nebulous. Like, what is probe data? What are probes? And then you come to learn that probes are connected devices. And, what are the connected devices? Are they all just phones? Or, what does this really mean?
Nice. That's a very nice question, because we use this term every day. We that work with location technology, we always say probe data all the time. But and what do we mean by that? So nowadays everybody is connected somehow. So I have my phone with me, or I am driving a car with navigation on the dashboard itself. And these devices, and then I'm calling the car and the phone, everything is just a moving device. So these devices nowadays, they connect with the satellite. So your phone, for example, knows your location when you're sharing a photo, for example, or when you doing a check-in on Facebook, it knows your location. So these devices, they all connect with the satellite and they send TomTom data. So when I'm walking on the street or on my bike, my phone is
constantly updating.
Knows exactly my location. Yeah. Exactly. And these are the devices that share the data with us. So we know every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds, we know we receive this point, this GPS points, and these points is what we call probe data. Yeah.
So besides the location, what else exactly are we sending to TomTom?
That's a good question. Like, what is all the information?
Yeah. So exactly. So every point, every probe data sends to us a latitude, a longitude, a direction, a speed, a among other information. But we know, coming from that same device, so let's say Olivia's phone, coming from the same device, we know the direction, the speed, the latitude, the longitude. So you get all this big data from all the devices, and you start analyzing this data, and that's how you create traffic, because you know the speeds that these devices are moving compared to the speed limit, compared to what is the free flow traffic. So that's in a nutshell how it's based.
Let me just be the devil's advocate here and ask the question that probably
the devil's developer advocate. I had to say it.
So you have Olivia's data,
my data
on the phone. That you also have anything else?
That's true. What about the entire world in my phone?
That's the most important question. So we don't know that it's Olivia. We just know that it's a device, but we don't know anything personal about that device. Not even if we want to know, because this data already comes all protected, and we just know that it's an anonymous ID, and this ID is not the same forever for Olivia's device, for example. This ID is constantly changing. So even if we want to, it's impossible through the data to actually follow an individual. And for us also, TomTom is not really worried. It's not our business, the single person. We want to know what is happening everywhere in the city. For example, we want to know all the streets, what's happening, and then we know the average of everything. To understand the individual is not really where the value for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then, does the device itself, or how it's registered in the system, it will continue to change. And I imagine some of that data is actually put into segments,
Yes.
right? In terms of, I know we split up how some of the traffic
Exactly.
is seen on roads and things like that. Roads are split up into different segments, I imagine. And so okay.
Exactly. There's all levels of protection. So there's the anonymous ID. The anonymous ID is constantly changing, but there's other levels of protection related to the location, for example. So the beginning of the trip and the end of the trip is always cut out.
Interesting.
So
okay.
we don't know, for example, what would be the house of a person or the destination of the person. So there's multiple layers of protection. Protection that sometimes the data already comes with that protection, and for TomTom it's something that it's already the nature of the data. So privacy is super taken seriously, and it's something that not even if we want, we could reverse engineer this, and also it's not part of our main core business.
It's not a vested interest, I imagine, to tie an identity to a specific device, because we're worried about is location, and the data behind the location, not specifically the data about a person behind a location.
Exactly. And but now that we covered this topic, another important thing is what type of devices, right? So we talked about the phone, we talked about the car, but there are other mixes as well. For example, nowadays you have a lot of cameras, sensor cameras. You have a lot of detector loops, which are those.
That's a new one for me.
Yes.
What are those?
This is all infrastructure. So it's not like the device where we receive data through internet connection and so on. These are really a real infrastructure. So the city government or the highways, the National Highway Agency of your country, they invest in these hardwares. So they might have, not in all roads, they might have on the main streets or main highways, they have these detector loops, which is, I'm not the super technical, but there's a fiber, there's a fiber wire under the pavement, and every time a car passes by, it counts. So this infrastructure has a lot of limitations, right? So, for example, the first one is it's not on all roads because that would be
Right.
really expensive. The second one is it just counts, detector loops just counts the cars. So I know if on a Sunday we had 1,000 cars at this location, when you compare to a Monday, I had 1 million cars, but I don't know the speed, the direction, and so on. It's merely a count. Yeah. And TomTom, we combine all these data, so of course, where we have relationships with the city. So the city also works with us in a partnership, and this infrastructure data help us to create even better quality service.
And it's interesting because I would imagine that some of the detector loops and cameras, these aren't necessarily new. So this data, I think you can probably draw a lot from this data in terms of, I know we talk about historical traffic and things like this. Does this play into that too?
Yeah. That's a very good point, Olivia. So as we receive this data, so going back to TomTom use case, as we receive the mobile and vehicle car data, this is all real time, right? So we receive in real time, we get this data, all of the data together, put in our server, and then we have to create the service, the traffic service, because the data, it's all data, it's all raw data.
It's not correlated or anything like that.
All this data, create the service, map match to the streets, and then deliver to the user, all in real time. Our service from data input to data delivery, we were talking about every minute. Every minute there's an update. And to your point, Olivia, we created these real-time products, but also we've been archiving this data to create historical traffic. So our customers can use this historical archive to create the statistics, to make some traffic analytics, traffic statistics, and help cities as well to, in urban planning, create new infrastructure, and so on.
And I know we use that. That's something we've talked about on the channel, I think, when we work with APIs and work with traffic, and we talk about planning future routes, where Jose and I have worked on, pulling the historical traffic info. And it's amazing because I think when you access it through an API or work on it on a tutorial, you get this distance from how the data is actually collected. But there's actually so many different sources that go into creating this data that you can actually access pretty easily.
Our community of developers today, if you go to developer.tomtom.com, you can have access to this data, even for free. You have a quota. So if you use, for example, our traffic API, where you get all this real-time data, and you combine it with the routing API, you can actually have access to the traffic, to the historical traffic. So you can know, you're able to know what is the speed on the street in front of your house at this moment, and also not only real time, but also compared to the typical speed. So all via the APIs. So one way of delivering is via the API. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jose. Speaking of routes, I was going to say, but no, go ahead.
I just hypothetically, hypothetical question. So let's assume I took one of a bunch of phones.
All the phones.
Yeah, maybe that many phones, and put it in a bucket and a trailer, and I start. I start running on the street. Can the traffic API, can the traffic person be fooled?
No.
Like happening to some other company?
Unnamed.
So that's an important process of in the whole, that's an important step in the whole process. So we receive the data. So in the example that you told us, you would have, let's say, 100 phones in the same bag, and you were carrying this bag.
Your car.
Exactly. So the first step for us is we get the data and we map match to streets because TomTom is focused on street movement. So what we do is we filter out all the data that is coming from boats, from bicycle, from pedestrian, because this is not really our core business. So first step, we filter out the data that it's not related to street movement. Another step is we filter out multiple devices that has the same location. So the example that you said is also, it's very real when you're traveling with your family in the car, it's a road trip, and you are 4 people
It's
in a
not a
car.
traffic jam.
Everybody has a phone and you always tracking the location of the same, but we filter because we see the same devices in the same location, traveling at the same speed, always with the same speed, always with the same location. So we filter out and we count only as one. So no, Jose, wouldn't work. It wouldn't fool us.
But then how do we know if something is a scooter or a bike compared to a car then? Is it just based on the average speed and the stop and go through the movements of the vehicle because it would be different than a car, or is it something else?
Exactly. So there's different types of filters, but for scooters, they have very different behavior. It's not only the street, but they have really different behavior. Though, if you see a traffic jam or a traffic light that has a line, that has a queue, the motorcycle and the scooters, it's completely different behavior. They go through the cars. They don't cross the traffic light, but they go through the cars and they stop in the front, and then they are the first to leave. So it's easily detected. The same thing for pedestrians and bikes because they have very different behavior. But you could argue, for example, that if it has a really heavy traffic jam with a bunch of cars that are actually stopped and then move a little bit, you could say, maybe this is a pedestrian.
Because those micro
but also
movements.
no, because it's exactly what you said, Olivia. It's a stop and go.
Because a car
exactly.
won't move maybe a few inches at a time or a few feet at a time.
yeah.
And then stop.
And then exactly. Yeah. And we do amazing stuff with this data, and it's not only about traffic products. But I know that we had a slide, Olivia, where we see all types of products.
Here we go.
I think it was the previous one.
Yeah, it's not only traffic. Yeah, let me put it here as well. It's not only traffic, but this data allows us to do many other products that even is not here on the slide, but we even use the same data to have fresher maps, to create maps, because if there's a new road and then you see the data coming through that new road, it's an indication that we have to draw a new road in the map. So we do many things with this data. So for example, not only traffic, but we do parking products. And then we're talking about on-street and off-street parking. Not only the garage where you can go and pay, but also on-street parking. We know the locations and the probability that you're going to find a parking spot. Nowadays, really hot topic, EV data.
Jose's
EV
favorite topic.
Service. So you know... Jose's favorite travel, because you have an EV car, Jose, probably. And
not yet.
Not yet. Go for me as well. But we know, for example, where is the charging points and the availability, if it's free or not, and all of this related to your car. So I know the battery. I know that your car has now only 20%. But you still need to get to your destination. So we tell you, according to your route, we tell you, hey, there's a charging point there that you can stop now because it's available, and then you finish your trip.
This is something we did recently with, we mapped our road trip with the Audi e-tron. We did sort of the advanced EV routing a little while ago. It seems already like a while ago, but it was really only 2 Devisodes ago.
Only a month ago, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, with our EV APIs.
But then how do we get
Yes.
to,
Nice.
because EV, I can understand where you can even import some of the settings or some of the parameters for different cars, like you could input the battery capacity manually and all these things. But how do we map things like parking? Do we just map them with some of the mapping cars? Because I remember talking to one of our mapping car drivers and talking about what you were mentioning about how we find new roads. If we see cars traveling on something we didn't previously see as a road, it gets added to the queue in terms of how we go and map. But how do we get parking from that?
Yeah, parking for off-street parking is it's easier. It's more of a partnership activity. So you need to source this data from all the parking garage, not individually, but you have companies that have access to, have the relationship with all the garages. So for off-street is easier. You get this data, you know the size of the garage, you know the viewability, you even know the price for each vehicle. For on-street parking, that's where it's more challenging. So actually what to do is you have to analyze the data. And what we see in the data is that when you're getting close to your destination, your traffic behavior changes completely.
Right.
So you were driving from point A to point B, and when you get close to your point B, you start driving slowly in circles around the block or trying to find a parking spot. So your behavior, the behavior of the driver changes completely.
Okay.
So you start analyzing the data only in this last moment of the trip, and then you create probabilities. There's a margin for error, of course, but you create very, very high probabilities. So we send you close to your destination. We send you go to that street because over there it's more likely that you're gonna find an available
interesting.
spot.
So we know it from the movement, from the behavior of different cars around that location.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's really interesting where we're heading with all this data, because it's not only that you start to understand behavior, and nowadays the more high-end cars, they also have a lot of sensor data. So that's how we differentiate. In the beginning of the presentation, we talked about probe data, but nowadays you're getting also sensor data. Sensor data is related to the car sensors. So you can get, for example, when the driver pushed the brake very hard, when it's raining because the windshield is moving, or you also get lane because you have sensors that can detect lane. So now, the more the car gets advanced, the more type of sensor data we're gonna get. So this is something that is just going to increase.
Now with the in this year, COVID-19, has it affected traffic as well? Considering that the routing API is based on historical data.
That's true.
Traffic historical data. So how does it affect? How did it work this year?
It affected completely. We saw first off, we saw the volume of the data completely goes almost to nothing. So if you see, especially the month, it varies per country, but if you see especially April and May this year, the volume of data went really, really low. But also, of course, this has an effect on quality of the service. But at the same time, if you looked outside in April and May, there was no traffic anywhere. Exactly. So it was really of the reality that affected the data. And another thing was the second part of your question that I forgot. The affected data, the whole COVID-19. But we're seeing, and that's also interesting because TomTom has a website called Traffic Index, where you can see some cool statistics about cities. It's not a product. It's not supposed to be a commercial product. It's a statistics around the data. And you could see that everywhere in the globe, traffic congestion went really low. But now we are in the phase where some cities already caught up to the previous patterns. So we are starting to think, something maybe that we could change in our life, like has less congestion or use less cars, but you see that really, really fast already the congestion level goes up again. Of course, there's a lot of factors there, right? Because with Corona, we got a little bit more afraid sometimes to go in the public transportation or to take the bus, to take the subway.
Right.
So more people are now preferring to get the car rather than public transport. So this could be one thing. I'm not saying that it is, but it has an influence. Yeah.
I see. Well, I'm just curious because next year the routing API will take in consideration historical data, which
and
is
it will have
this
to
year.
level out.
There was your second part.
That was the second part.
The historical data in the routing API. One thing that we're doing, Jose, is instead of comparing to last year, what we're going to do is we're going to have a short historic window as well. So instead of comparing to last year, we're going to compare to it's still prototype, we're making some tests, but we're going to test to 2 months ago. So it's going to be a short historical period. Because what you said, imagine if I'm in April 2021 and hopefully everything is going to be okay. When I compare to April 2020, the historical values will be completely off.
Yeah.
Like actually,
so we're thinking of creating a short-term historical.
Yeah, I actually have the traffic index. I can actually put it on screen for a quick minute here. But I even see that right now, of course, it has 2019 overview, but it will change out, right? It will change to...
No, that's exactly.
Yeah.
This is a campaign that we launch every January. So January now, we're going to launch the overview of 2020. And that's where it got, of course, in terms of the data, that's where it got really, really different. So just January, when we launched the Traffic Index 2021 related to the 2020 data, for sure this ranking is going to be completely different. Yeah.
Right, because we see the traffic decrease for 2019, but for 2020, of course, traffic will have this big false decrease because there was no complete absence of commuter traffic and all of these things. Yeah. Because the traffic index itself I always found was really interesting. You can put in your city and you can see, how the traffic has changed over the past while. But no, exactly. And then it'll receive the update.
Compared to, yeah, you see your city, you compare now to the last year, you compare now to last week,
right,
to understand if the congestion is going up. It's really cool website that you can have easy insights ready to use. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to crunch any data, do statistics yourself. It's just easy insights that you can learn for your city.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's really open to everybody, not just developers, of course. Even though, well, like Jose said, and like you said, it'll be the updates will be part of the routing API in some way.
Yeah, it ends up in the API for sure. Yeah.
What was the next thing we were going to cover? I know we were going to talk about real-time traffic, which we talked about a little bit in terms of real-time traffic versus the historical traffic. But I know our next topic was talking about the Fusion engine, which I think is something interesting because I remember seeing the Fusion engine thinking, what is the traffic engine? What does this all really mean?
Yes.
How does it work?
The Fusion engine that you see in the middle. So what you see on the red column is all the input data. So we talk about the probe data. This is the main input data that we have. We have historical traffic, which we archive this data. We call it speed profiles. And we have another input data, which we're calling journalistic data here, which is really, really manual input. We have people all around the world with our moderators, but also partnership with cities and traffic agencies. And these guys, this community, actually input journalistic data. So, for example, car crash, car accidents, sports events that has an effect on traffic. So if there's a marathon in your city. So we have all these planned events that we input. So this is all input data, all in the red column.
Right.
In what we call Fusion Engine is a super powerful server that TomTom has, a super cloud computer that we have to ingest all this input data, do a lot of steps. So we match the data, we analyze the speeds, we identify the gems, we identify the roadworks, we identify the road closures. So this is all part of getting raw data and creating the service. And once the service is ready, we need to deliver this service to our customers, to the user. And then we also had a slide.
Is it the next one?
It
might be the next one.
Which is the user access, which is the user. Yeah.
This is the very scary looking
There's
slide,
a user
right? Which
Yeah.
The one with all the colors.
this one's very easy,
yeah.
and then this one, it looks like this big overload of information. But it's interesting, right? Because I don't really know what's going on quite yet if I just look at it head on. But
that's the purpose of the slide. It's like to confuse, because it's really a complex process that happens in the Fusion Engine. Yeah. But I think if you go to the next one where we say user access.
Oh, we have the overlays, and we go one more. Okay, yeah.
And then the user access, and then the next one we tell you the types of delivery. It's curious because we get the data, we create the service, and then we need to deliver to the customer. And of course, TomTom, we have different types of customers. So one very important customer is all the automotive brands, right? TomTom works with almost all the automotive cars. So we have a delivery service which is from TomTom server, from TomTom cloud, goes directly to your car.
Right.
So this is the one in the middle. It's called end user traffic. So from TomTom, it goes directly to the end user. But we also have other ones. So the first one in the blue column is intermediate traffic. So this one is really designed for enterprise, for other companies. So from TomTom Cloud, first goes to another company's cloud, and then the company is responsible to deliver to their end user.
Right, they end up using that data.
Correct.
So, for example, a good example is our customer Uber. We send from TomTom Cloud, we send to Uber computer, and then they deliver to the users.
Right.
And there's the last one, which is really common, I think, for this community, and it's the most straightforward. It's APIs. It's the Traffic API. So the Traffic API, it's really for developers. We have also SDKs. So it's everything web service, REST APIs, easy to develop, easy to create. If you want to, for example, create a mobile app, we have all the APIs for you to create this app. Or if you want to create your website and you want to have traffic on a map on your website, everything is there. Easy to
that's the easy way to integrate it. And probably one of the fastest ways.
That's the easiest way. Exactly. And they are getting power and more powerful, right? So the Traffic APIs is always evolving, and all the features that we create, eventually they end up in the API for sure. That's the main goal, to put all the features, doesn't matter how complex they are, they need to be available in the APIs as well.
Right. And I know I have on here, it's a slide where we just sort of have a shot of the developer portal, which is where you can start getting set up with Traffic. And of course, we have used Traffic, I think, almost nearly every time we've been on the stream in terms of when we're building something.
There's always traffic flow or traffic incidents displayed.
It's always one of them.
All our apps.
Yeah.
So I have one last hard question, like complex question.
Last hard question.
Tell me.
Okay. How is it possible that I'm using now Amigo, which is our navigation, free navigation application?
I use it as well. Yeah.
Yes, and it can tell me when it's going, when probable accident ahead of me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When I'm driving. Before even that they get the incident from the city. How?
True.
No, okay, I was imagining, okay, maybe it's because of the traffic going slowing down, but could be also a jam, right?
Could be just a jam,
A
exactly.
jam. How do you say it's a probable accident or
This,
something happening on the road?
this is really nice because our partners and our customers, they also help us to create maps and create traffic service like that. So it's really a community that when TomTom has a new partner, has a new customer, we deliver all the tools that make this partner also part of the community, also as a reporter. So when you're using your Amigo and there's a traffic jam, probably we had several inputs from different sources. One partner helped us said that there's an accident, another one said, and then we're going to have 3, 4 multiple people saying that that has an accident, and that's how we inform the driver. So probably in the beginning, when we had just a few inputs, we say, hey, it's probably there's an accident. And then as we get more and more data on that event, we start to say, no, there is an accident, or we just, no, it's not an accident. But we can confirm to you the more data.
So the data comes in pretty quickly then,
and
to
also
just conclude that it's an accident just in terms of movement.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All of this that we're talking, it's real time. It happens in terms of minutes, and then in this type of accident, for example, you're going to have a lag of minutes or 2 minutes, but it's almost everything real time. And as you mentioned, Amigo, Jose, you can also contribute, you as a driver. So if you see something on the road, then you can be part of this community. So you have a simple way to just contribute. So this is all part of the process, right? So this is very important at TomTom. We want to make you feel part of the whole process, and we give you the feedback loop. We tell you how you're helping, and it's really nice. I've been using Amigo, and I have to tell you, it's amazing. I really like it.
We'll put a link.
We'll put a link
after the video. Put links on everything. Yeah.
Good one. Yeah.
So, how are we on time, Olivia?
I think we're doing okay on time in terms of we're past our half-hour mark, but I don't see any other questions in the chat or anything like that.
Good.
So if we want to, we can end on the hard question on how do we actually find accidents from the traffic, from the congestion that we've been escaping in 2020.
There hasn't been any much traffic.
No,
lately,
it still hasn't bounced back, which I think
be
is
honest.
good.
Yeah. Especially now here in the Netherlands, we just unfortunately we just started another lockdown, another quarantine. So, and I could notice today that it had a real impact. Right? The movement on the street went.
I'm noticing here in Austin, Texas. Obviously, there's the rumor that we will also start having a curfew and a second lockdown, and the traffic itself, even at peak times yesterday when I was driving, there were less cars on the road because people, I think, there's a lot of news coverage and there's this preparation aspect, and it's this back and forth this year, right, with commuter traffic or whatever regular traffic's on the road.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting end of the year, quiet end of the year for everybody. Yeah.
Well, we wish you the best time. End of the year.
Very happy end of the year and a happy holiday because it's our last stream of the year as well. But with any luck, we'll also come back with more Q&As on traffic next year, not only here, but also on our YouTube channel. So thanks for talking about.
Yes, thanks, guys. I'm happy to be part of the last one of the year. Happy holidays, enjoy, and hopefully next year we're going to be here much better for everybody.
Thanks for coming on the stream with us.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
And happy mapping.
Cool, guys. Thank you.
Happy mapping.
Thank you.